Tonight in New York, President Obama became the first sitting U.S. president to attend a campaign fundraiser with the LGBT community. No surprise that George W. Bush never did that, but Bill Clinton never did it either in his 8 years in the White House. Outside the event, some protested against the president for not endorsing same-sex marriage. The long-planned Obama campaign event coincidentally took place as the New York State Senate stands within one vote of passing legislation that would make New York the 6th and largest state to legalize marriage equality. The president addressed that vote tonight.
New York is doing exactly what democracies are supposed to do. There's a debate, there's deliberation about what it means here in New York to treat people fairly in the eyes of the law. And that is, look, that's the power of our democratic system.
Joining me now, Evan Wolfson, who is the president of Freedom to Marry, a national campaign to end marriage discrimination. Thanks for joining me tonight, Evan.
Good to be with you, Lawrence.
Evan, yours is a nonpartisan organization. You watched the president's speech tonight. What did you think of what he had to say?
I think the president had a lot of really important and good things to say, and he has a lot of important and good achievements to point to. But it's really what he didn't say tonight that left a gap and left people, many people, still unsatisfied. The president did not come out forthrightly in support of the freedom to marry, even though he has many steps to point to that he has taken that have helped solidify and build support for the freedom to marry. And it's really time for the president to join the majority of Americans who now support the freedom to marry.
President Obama seems to be getting more stress in this area than President Clinton ever did, and yet President Clinton is who enacted Don't Ask, Don't Tell. President Obama is the president who is getting rid of it. He's not the Defense of Marriage Act. President Clinton signed into law. President Obama is refusing to defend it on appeal in federal courts. What is the disconnect, the apparent disconnect here between the support or the criticism also that President Obama is getting that it seems to me President Clinton never suffered?
Well, I think, first of all, you're absolutely right. This president, President Obama, has done many important things. Moving to end military discrimination is a giant step for our country and a matter of fairness for men and women serving our nation. And the president and the attorney general's decision and declaration that the so-called Defense of Marriage Act is unconstitutional and therefore is indefensible by the U.S. government was a very important historic step, and he is rightly celebrated for that. But at the same time, when President Clinton signed into law the so-called Defense of Marriage Act, and when the military discrimination was enacted by Congress in the 90s, the country was in a very, very different place than it is today. And President Obama has himself acknowledged that. The country, like the president, has been on a journey in which people have talked about why marriage matters. People have seen loving and committed couples who seek to participate in the freedom to marry, and we now have 5 states and the District of Columbia, with New York potentially about to add to that number, and in fact doubling the number of Americans who live in a state where gay people share in the freedom to marry. If New York passes this bill, it'll be going from 16 million to 35 million. So the country today is just not in the same place. We now have a majority in favor of the freedom to marry, and people look to this president to show the leadership, to stand up for the justice and inclusion that many people actually really believe he does indeed support.
Evan Wolfson, president of Freedom to Marry, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.